Russian President Vladimir Putin and German Chancellor Olaf Scholz held their first phone conversation since December 2022 on Friday, marking a significant diplomatic development. With this rather controversial call as per Western allies, Scholz became the first Western leader to break Russia's diplomatic isolation, while continuing to support Ukraine in its defense against Russian aggression. The conversation revealed new insights into the ongoing conflict. Scholz urged Putin to end the war in Ukraine and stressed that Russia must engage in meaningful negotiations with Kyiv. He reaffirmed Germany's commitment to supporting Ukraine's defense. Before the call with Putin, Scholz spoke with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy and plans to consult with him again after the call.
This was announced a long time ago, and I discussed this with many people in many conversations in advance, guided by the right considerations. It's important to understand it is not that simple to end this war.
In the conversation, Putin remained defiant, continuing to blame NATO's policies for the crisis in Ukraine. He reiterated his position that any potential agreements must account for Russia's security concerns and the new territorial realities arising from the war. Scholz, however, emphasized the complexity of ending the conflict, insisting that peace would only be possible if Putin abandoned his imperial ambitions. Scholz's call to Putin has drawn criticism from Ukrainian President Zelenskyy, who described the conversation as a Pandora's box. Zelenskyy warned that it could lead to meaningless negotiations, much like past efforts, and vowed there would be no Minsk III deal. He accused Putin of trying to weaken Russia's isolation and shift global attention away from the ongoing war.
Olaf's call, in my opinion, is Pandora's box. Now there may be other conversations, other calls. Just a lot of words.
Scholz later justified his call during a media briefing, stressing that dialogue with Putin was necessary to attempt an end to the war. He emphasized that any potential peace efforts could only succeed if Putin abandoned his imperialist ambitions. Scholz also reflected on the challenges of resolving the conflict, asserting that Germany would continue its support for Ukraine's defense.
It is not that simple to end this war. We will have to continue to support Ukraine so that it can defend itself. And it's important for Germany, as a key European power, to engage directly with Russia.
Despite the call's diplomatic significance, Putin remained firm in his stance. He acknowledged the severe deterioration of Russian-German relations and reiterated that Russia has always met its energy commitments. He offered cooperation with Germany in the energy sector, contingent upon Berlin's willingness to engage. In addition to the war in Ukraine, the leaders also briefly touched on the Middle East crisis, though no specifics were disclosed. Both leaders agreed to maintain communication through their respective aides, signaling that despite the tensions, they were willing to keep diplomatic channels open. Russia's official stance on the call was explained by Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov, who confirmed that the conversation between Putin and Scholz was initiated by the German side. Peskov emphasized that while serious disagreements persist, the fact that the two leaders spoke was a positive development. He described the conversation as factual, thorough, and frank, with Putin speaking in Russian through an interpreter.
The conversation took place at the initiative of the German side. It certainly proves its importance. However, no convergence of views can be seen. Therefore, certainly there are rather serious disagreements, but the very fact that the dialogue took place is positive.
Peskov also suggested that the timing of the call might be linked to the evolving political situation in Germany and the global context, including the outcome of the American elections, underscoring that President Putin has always expressed openness to dialogue. The conversation marks a significant moment in Russian-German relations, as Scholz seeks to balance his support for Ukraine with diplomatic efforts to re-engage with Russia. For Putin, the call was an opportunity to reaffirm his hardline stance on NATO and territorial issues while acknowledging the possibility of future negotiations.